Module 2, Part 1. Syllabus is planning, definition of planning, features of the planning, nature of the planning, importance of planning, limitations of planning, types of planning, steps in planning, planning tools and techniques, essentials of plan. So we have to cover. Let's start discussion. Planning. Process of making plans for something. How the planning is done. Suppose you are going to trip. You plan what to do, where are you going, then how to do it. How will go by public transportation or bike or your own car or rented car. You have to decide before going that at least 5 minutes prior going you have to plan when to do it. Usually go in the vacation, plan the vacations or somewhere. Who is to do it? Who is doing that? Who is going to trip? You are going with your friends or family. You have to decide that before going. Who is going along with you? This is a process of planning. Planning is a step involves the mapping out exactly how to achieve a particular goal. Say, for example, that the organization's goal is to improve company sales. The manager first needs to decide which steps are necessary to accomplish that goal. These steps may include increasing advertising. Advertising is the most important thing in increasing sales, inventory, and sales staffs. Planning and scheduling is a complicated part of the spacecraft control. In spacecraft controlling, planning and scheduling is very complicated process. Planning for our purposes can be thought of as determining all small tasks that must be carried out in order to accomplish a goal. Let's say your goal is to buy a gallon of milk. It may sound like a simple task, but if you break it down, there are many small tasks involved. Obtain keys first, then obtain your wallet. Without wallet, you cannot buy a milk. Start the car, drive to the store, find and obtain the milk, and purchase the milk, etc. Planning also takes into account rules called constraints. Constraints means limitations. We have limitations in doing any achieving any goal if we have constraints. Constraints means limitations are restrictions which control when certain tasks can or cannot happen. Two of many constraints in this example are you must obtain your keys and wallet before driving to the store, and you must obtain the milk before purchasing it. You should have money to purchase the milk and should go to the shop. Don't go there if you don't go down, and if you don't have keys you have to come back. It is a constraint. It take little more time. If you don't have a wallet you have to come back again to get back your wallet. This is a constraint here. Next, planning is the outcome of the mental process rather than wishful thinking and guesswork. It is not a random guessing. The mental process. Mental process means you should have a information regarding what goal you are going to achieve, how to achieve it. You should have a proper plan. You should think about it, how to achieve this goal. Planning is a thinking process and it is separate from the organizational act. It is based on the logical reasoning, facts, foresight. Foresight means forecasting what happens in the future. That is called foresight. The vision, your vision, what happens, visualize what happens in the future. That is called foresight. Vision, intelligent imagination. Yes, intelligent imagination. Some people guess what happens in the future. For example, Bill Gates already told about the almost, I think, in 2005, he talked about this COVID 19. Not exactly COVID 19, he told about this pandemic. I think this is come. He had predicted that. So he's a good businessman and a sound judgment. You should be very good at judgment. Then next comes the definition of the planning. It comes for 3 marks. Planning is a forecast for accomplishment. It is predetermined course of action. It is today's projection of tomorrow's activity. Projection means that again it's a foresight or a forecasting for tomorrow's activity. In other words, the plan is to produce a scheme for future action to bring about specific results at a specific cost in a specified period of time. Management thinkers have defined the term basically in two ways based on the futurity as a thinking function. First one is based on futurity. Planning is the trap laid down to capture the future. Allen said this. Planning is deciding in advance what is to be done in future. Coons said this. Planning is informed anticipation of future, guessing what may happen in the future. Hyman said this. Planning is anticipatory decision making. R.L. Hoff said this. As a thinking function, planning is a thinking process, an organized foresight, a vision based on fact and experience that is required for intelligent action. In thinking or action, you need experience and you need a data. It should be accumulated in your head. You should have information about that field. Take a decision. Planning is deciding in advance what to do, how to do it, when to do it, and who is to do it. This definition is given by Coons and O'Connell. It is deciding in the present what is to be done in future. It is a process of thinking before doing. You should think. Plan is a specific, documented intention consisting of an objective and an action statement. The objective portion is the end. The action statement represents the means to the end. Stated another way, objectives give management targets to shoot at, whereas action statements provides the arrows for hitting that targets. Understood? Properly conceived plans tell what, where, how something is to be done. Features of the planning, nature of the planning for both of these, the same answer is there. Here are the points. First point is planning is goal oriented. All the plans arise from the objectives. Objective means the end results of the goal. Objectives provide basic guidelines for the planning activities. Planning has no meaning unless it contributes in some positive manner to the achievement of the predetermined goals. Planning is a primary function. It is the first function in the organization. Even business startups should have a plan. Randomly, they cannot produce anything or cannot do anything. What they are going to give, they are giving service or producing product. Which kind of a product it is? A product or a B2B product. What kind of product they are going to produce? They have to set their vision first. It is the present exercise in the management. It is a preface to the activity. Yes. Like for doing the project, you give the synopsis, your guides, like that. Planning is that. According to the Coons, planning provides a basic foundation from which all future management functions arise. Terry also supported that view, that without planning there is nothing to organize, no one to motivate, no need to control. Idea of primacy of planning emphasizes the fact that planning takes precedence over other managerial functions. Yes, it is the first function. Organizing, directing, and controlling, because none of these functions can come into being until there is a plan. Third point is planning is all pervasive. Pervasive means penetrating, entering into all the fields. All functions need a planning. Every department needs planning. Planning is a function of all managers. It is needed and practiced at all managerial levels. Planning is inherent in everything a manager does. Managers have to plan before launching a new startup. Business should have plan. They have to plan whenever things change. Whenever the change comes, they have to replan it again. Even when they decide to close down the plant, they have to plan for it. They have to plan meticulously to avoid problems from the employees. Employees may do strikes for locking down of the company. So they have to pay the compensation to the employees and send them to the home before closing the declaring that lockdown. The scope of planning, however, differs at the different levels and among different departments. Planning is a mental exercise. Already told about this thinking process. Planning is mental process involving imagination. How this imagination comes in planning is Harappi is there. It came into existence. There was requirements. An idea came to that uh, startup starting up the business. One Pay was there, and more thing is Google Pay was there. For uniting all these space, one unified coding was required. When unifying the software was required for that. That this idea came to that man, and he found this Bharat P. Foresight and sound judgment planning. It's a foresight. What happens in the should have a little. What happens in the future automatically. It is not a rough guesswork. They have a data regarding what may happen in the future. Sound judgment. They should be very good at judgmenting. Planning compels managers to abandon guesswork and wishful thinking. It makes them think in logical and systematic manner. Plans are based on the careful study of internal and external factors influencing business activities. Fifth point is planning is continuous process. Once business startup, there is no planning needed, not like that. Day-to-day activity should be planned. Planning is every department and in every activity. Planning is needed. It is never-ending activity. Once plans for specific period are prepared, they are translated into action. The end of that period, there is no need for the new plan to be drawn based on the new situations and conditions. Planning is thus an ongoing process, adjustment to change. There is always need for a new plan to be drawn on the basis of a new demands, changes in circumstances, market demands. Planning involves choice. Yes, many choices are there. Alternatives are there to choose in planning. Planning essentially involves choice among the various alternative courses. If there is a one way of doing something, there is a no need for planning. Only one way is there. Planning is not required. The need for planning arises when the alternative have to use the optimum alternative option. Planning presupposes the existence of alternatives. Here we need an experienced person to take alternatives from him, suggestions from him. From out of these alternatives, the manager should select the best alternative after the careful analysis and evaluation. Seventh point is planning is forward looking. Forecast. Planning means looking ahead, preparing for the future. It means peeping into the future. A little bit you can guess what may happen in the future if you have a huge data, huge experience in that field. Analyzing it and preparing for it. Managers plan today with a view to flourish tomorrow. Without planning, business becomes random in nature and decisions would come as ad hoc choices. Ad hoc means random choice. Planning is flexible. Planning is based on the forecast of the future events. Since future is uncertain, plans should be reasonably flexible. The onset of the color television sets forced many manufacturers in the West to abandon the production of the black and white sets long back. In this situation, what happened? If many black and white television product producing companies were there, when the color television entered into the market, this demand for black and white television come to an end. Then what these businesses have to they have to close on this producing the black and white television. There is a new market for them. They can go for producing color television, or they have to wind up their organization. Only two options are there. They have to adapt the changes. They have to produce the new things what are demanding in the market. When the market conditions change, planners have to necessary changes in existing plans. According to Coons and O'Donnell, effective planning requires continual checking on events and forecasts and redrawing of the plans to maintain course towards the design goal. Next, the planning is an integrated process. Unifies everything. Plan. Planning are structured in a logical way wherein every lower level plan serves as a means to accomplish the higher level plans. They are highly interdependent and mutually supportive. And unifies every part or every activity in efficient. Planning includes efficiency and effectiveness dimensions. Plans aim at deploying resources economically and efficiently. They also try to accomplish what has been actually targeted. The effectiveness of the plan is usually dependent on how much it can contribute to the predetermined objectives. Effectiveness means choose the right thing, doing the right thing. Efficiency means making the things right, whatever may be the situation, make that thing right. That is efficiency. Capability. Effectiveness is follow the rules, follow, achieve the goals. What is to be achieved, you have to achieve that, do the right thing. That is effective. Next, we moved on to the next heading is the importance of the planning. Why is planning so important? Not only in the organization, in the life also you need to plan. You start going to this at least PUC, 11th, 12th standard. You decide which which domain you are going, which field you are interested to have interest in that field. Which don't have interest, a big burden throughout the whole life because your whole life you're going to work. So you have to decide in which field you get. This is very important. Like this, planning penetrates into every part of organ, not only organization, the life also we need a planning. Suppose we are coming to the college in the morning, you are going to the office. You need a planning. Night only what I'm going to hear in the morning. Girls will decide this, boys will something here and come. But even though how you are going to school, you are taking lunch from the or you are eating outside, thing you have to plan. No organization can achieve its goals without planning. Planning helps in determining the goals of an organization and activities needed to satisfy these goals. If organizations are operating on day-to-day basis with no feel of where they are heading, the results will be haphazard. Haphazard means random. Whatever result may come in the end. If without planning, if you go on doing something, something will come out. If you set the goal, if you plan for what to achieve, then you'll get what you want. It is like sailors lost at sea forward. They feel helpless just sitting there. So they're not having any idea of where they're rowing with all take them. Where the sea and the wind will take them, the small boat will go there. They don't have a planning where to go. They don't have rock. Planning helps an organization in the following. Planning provides direction. Yes, provides direction for everyone working in. Planning provides direction and sense of purpose for the organization. Without plans and goals, organizations merely react to daily occurrences without considering what will happen in the long run. Plans avoid this drift situation. Drift means confusion. Um, ensure that short range efforts will support and harmonize with the future goals. It helps an organization decide what to do and when to do it. It reduces aimless activity and makes action more meaningful. Second point is planning provides a unifying framework. Yes, it unifies. Planning forces people to continually address their efforts, the most important work rather than the least important. Prioritize the work. In the absence of a plan, unifying focus on the company objectives may be missing. Plan tells everyone what the organization hopes to achieve and what the contribution of each department must be, and who is to utilize the resources to achieve the goals. Plans serve as the basis of the coordinating the efforts of different divisions, departments, the people. In the absence of a plan, organization would be pulled in different directions, creating confusion and misunderstandings at various levels. Planning is economical. Yes, have economical goal. Planning. Effective plans coordinate organizational work and eliminate unproductive effort. Guesswork is banished. Yes. Planning is there means no random guesswork. They have a proper planning. Facilities are employed to best advantage. Waste, motions, and idle facilities are removed. In the word of Coulson or O'Donnell, the planning substitutes jointly directed efforts against the uncoordinated piecemeal activity. Uncoordinated piecemeal activity, the unsystematic activity, avoids. It prefers jointly directed efforts and even flow of work for uneven flow. Uneven flow is not preferred in planning. Even flow of work should be from top to bottom. Work should be decisions should be flowing. Direction should come from the one person from top to the bottom. Deliberate decisions for the uh, snap judgments. Uh, Sudden judgments are not preferred in the plan. Deliberate decisions are preferred. If focusing attention on what is to be done, how and when it is to be done, plans help an organization to utilize its physical and human. This ultimately leads to efficiency of the operations. The fourth point, planning reduces of uncertainty. Planning, uncertainties, contingent environment, and demand and this supply variation in the market also affects the production organization. So, where there is a business, there is a risk. Planning helps the organization to cope with an uncertain future. For uncertain things, also you have a planning. It helps management to anticipate future and prepare for risks by provisions to meet the unexpected. Planning enables a manager, in the word of Drucker, to affect rather than accept the future. In the absence of the plan, the organization is much more likely to sit back and let things happen and then react to these happenings in the crisis. There is absence of plan for uncertainties, then they have to sit back and watch whatever that will happen. Then instead of proactive plan, they have a reactive plan. After happening something, they start planning for that. That is react to the happenings in the crisis. Planning minimizes the chances of the mistakes and unpleasant surprises because objectives, policies, and strategies are formulated after a careful scrutiny of the internal as well as external environment. Objectives of the organization, policies, and strategies are formulated carefully by observation of internal and external environment. Planning thus seeks to minimize risk while taking advantage of opportunities, keeps management alert to the environmental changes, and manage the uncertain future in the usual useful way. Next, fifth point is planning facilitates decision making. What is decision making? It's the process of identifying problems and opportunities and then resolving them. What problem currently we are having, and when we face the problem at that time there is opportunity. We have to look for the opportunities what we're having. For example, during the COVID-19, India has a lot of opportunities because India has the maximum medicine producing plants in India. So during COVID-19, whole world was the requirement of the medicines. Requirement was more, demand was more, supply was very less. Employees are not working everywhere because everybody was afraid to die, so they are sitting at home. So that time, India produced a lot of medicines, and people worked day and night at that time. Indian people are very hardworking. Not only hardworking, they are morally very good people. Helped the whole world by producing medicines during that period. So, planning facilitates decision making. Decision making involves searching of various alternative course of action, evaluating them, and selecting the best. Planned targets serve as a criteria for the evaluation of different alternatives so that the best one may be chosen. If there are no plan for future, there are few guidelines for making current decisions. You don't have planning, you don't have alternative ideas, data you don't have, then it will be very difficult for you to take. For example, decisions have to be made in the present for a product to be used 3 years in the future. When future plan exists, decisions consist with future plan are made. Further, without plans, people will make decisions according to their own preference rather than those of an organization. It will not be then goal oriented, then this will be random, haphazard results will come. Planning encourages innovation. Planning involves looking ahead, preparing for the future. When the future comes, you have innovative ideas and creative ideas. The process of looking ahead and forces an organization to be alert of opportunities and the threats in an. Now, 20 years back, we didn't think of everybody is keeping a smartphone in the hand and playing with the figure, right? 20 years back, didn't imagine that thousands or lakhs of people are working in the software field. We didn't think of this field would exist and give jobs to so many people. But today, everything is possible. Everybody is having a smartphone in their hand. Even below the poverty line, people also have a smartphone. It forces managers to find out the new and improved way of doing things in order to remain competitive and avoid threats. It compels the managers to be creative and innovative all the time. Planning helps managers to visualize problems early and take suitable remedy steps. It helps them encash opportunities and come out as a winners in the competitive world. Planning improves morale. Once the members know what is expected of them, they also contribute their better. When goals are properly defined, work assignments can be fixed and everyone can begin to contribute to the achievement of these goals. This produces improvements in the model. Further, planning permits employees to participate in the process, helps them to develop broad mentality. Also, when the plan is actually translated into action, they feel that it is their own plan. Positive attributes are thus developed. There is a less friction between departments, is greater personal involvement and commitment to planning improves the behavioral climate in the organization. Eighth point is planning facilitates facilities. Where there is a planning, there is a controlling. Planning and controlling functions are said to be Siamese twins. Siamese twins mean what? Conjoined twins. Conjoined twins. Why these twins are called Siamese? Until late 1800, conjoined were called monsters. The term Siamese twins comes from the twin conjoined brothers Chang and Eng Bunker, who were born in Siam. Now it's in Thailand. When first arrived in England to become a circus exhibits, they were called the Siamese twins. It was a horrible story. Their parents also took advantage of these Siamese twins, and then government interfered in that, as if acting to take care of the children and give them a normal life. But they also took control, took away the children from their parents and kept these twins in the exhibition and earned a lot of money. Siamese twins, horrible story. Nothing control without planning, without proper control. Should be there. Planning should be there, and they control there. Without control, people will not work properly. Planning proves to be wasteful and unproductive exercise without control. Plans serve as a yardstick for measuring performance. They help in generalizing behavior in the right direction. They help in preventing mistakes, oversights, and deviations. Now we are moving next studying limitations of the planning. Are the limitations? As its limitations, planning is not always on the credit side of the ledger. We do the proper planning and everything will happen according to our plan. It's not like that. It is not a pinasi for all organization else. It is not a medicine for organization else. Planning should be there, but it's not a medicine to everything. Mere planning does not guarantee success because it is not a substitute for the action, judgment. So limitations of the planning can be examined and first one is rigidity. puts the activity of an enterprise in rigid framework of flexibility. Everything is spelled out in the detail and deviations are not permitted. New opportunities are often ignored and rejected because of the commitment to the existing plans. Once established, policies and procedures become ingrained in an enterprise and changing them may become an impossible task. Events may change, but plans may remain fixed. Managers too would be reluctant to reorient their plans suitably. Planning, after all, is a hard mental work, and no executive would like to discard old plans in favor of new ones. Even when circumstances demand, so the mindset has always been mission object difficult, costly and time consuming. Planning is. Planning is costly. It's expensive because in terms of the time spent to formulate the plans, by the manpower to the planning and to execute the plan, collection of the information, evaluation of alternatives, selection of a course of action, a lot of execution time, organizational risk. If we start up the business today, by the end of the 1 year, we need a profit. We have to produce the products. We have deadlines to produce the products. So, but take too much time in the planning. Employee resistance for any plan to succeed. You need a operating people. Usually happens. Top management they will plan for your organization, but at the operating level, executive different. So what they have to do, they have to take the opinions, involve the people from the operating level. Otherwise, they'll face the registered people, the operational level. Uh, at people at the operation level should understand it, embrace it, accept it, do it, and make it happen. One of the frequent complaints made against the planning process is that it is done by the specialists who are not in touch with the operations. As a result, operating people who are not involved in planning tend to resist the planning process. Planning imposed from the above often leads to the resentment and resistance from those forced to execute. False sense planning gives it. Elaborate planning may create a false sense of security. Managers may feel that everything is well taken care of. They begin to assume that as long as the plans are adhered to, there will not be any problems. As a result, they fail to take a note of environmental changes and need to review, restructure, reorient the old plans in an appropriate. It should be a continuous process. Planning. Managerial deficiency. Planning is an intellectual demanding function. Since managers are assessed on the basis of results, they begin to discount long range plans and adopt short range plans them in a comfortable position. This may harm organizational interests long run. Planning involves a lot of paperwork and environmental labor. Most managers not like to undergo such a painful process, which ultimately may not produce results. Further, planners may be lacking in skills in the right way, yet inspiring and emphasizing the people all along. In such cases also, utility of the planning is seriously reduced. Plan as we now can be only as good as the planners. Managerial deficiencies the way of the formulating plans and developing the right climate. This happens because ineligible persons are promoted to top higher positions because they worked so many long years. They promote them, but they are incapable. This happens when they are capable to the decisions, capable to make planning, then the plan will fail. Planning prevents innovation. Everything is predetermined. Planning demands commitment to the written policies, procedures, and the rules, etc. It restricts the manager on certain unnecessary to define areas. The executive is prevented from experimenting in novel ideas, venturing into risky but profitable areas, and exploring the untested at lucrative grounds. The answer given by the island to this question makes an interesting. To require a manager to avoid overlapping, no matter how innovative his ideas may be, not more than asking violinist in orchestra to stick to his music, while pianist confines himself to that of his own instrument. violinists, and be honest, these are artists. They should be free to express their talent. They are fixed to do this, you play only this, you play only this every day, and there will be no new outcome, no end result will be good. This can hardly be said to hamper the desirable best. External limitation is quite often remarked that planning is ritual in fast changing environment. This statement describes to the fact that planning is an empty academic in the face of highly competitive environment. Difficult to predict what happens. Another beauty. Difficult for the planners to forecast economic conditions of different countries. Economic conditions. Now the economic condition of every country is in a difficult situation because of wars going on here and there. Say, Ukraine war. We consider this is affecting supply of the gas and the crude oil, and everywhere there is a scarcity of the petrol and diesel, gas, what, and the government policies. Depending on the government policies changes, now electronics materials everything paid a tax on. Competitive maneuvers of the human behavior with a degree of accuracy. Planning basically depends on of oscillations. Only when these are substantially correct, planning produces the portfolio. Projected too far into the future. Cannot predict after 50 years what happens according to produce the after 50 years. Yeah, little time, 3 years. After 3 years, you should have a that. Moreover, the reliability of the planning efforts is open to doubt since they are projected further into the future, where the manager has no control over the environment. Now, because of this heat wave in Europe, ever dried rivers are dried up. They are facing scarcity of water. Because of this scarcity, there is a scarcity of electricity. One thing is leading to nothing, causing problems. It may not be possible to anticipate changes accurately and provide for them in the certainty and predictability. The hallmark of the business environment reduce the unused planning. Economic and political and technological revolutions forced corporate planners to revise the plans day in and day out. Now, technological revolution is software entered into the every organization, and every documentation is saved and digitalized now in the every corporate. Then they have to change the operation way operating way. They have to adapt this software data keeping. Corporate planners to revise the plans day to day and day out. Sometimes there is a revision in the plans even before their implementation. This happens. In a phase of the highly volatile and turbulent environment, plans become obsolete documents that guide the destiny. It is extremely difficult for organizations to buffer themselves against instability. Government instability, environmental instability, no matter how carefully and effectively the planning exercises are done. Environment turbulence is there. Emergency situations. Emergency, the utility of the planning is further discounted. In case of the emergencies like strikes, lockouts, industrial disasters like that recently took place in the chemical plant in Bhopal, Madhya Pradesh in India. In such instances, plans are completely absent. Decisions mean hand to mouth. That means hand to mouth means immediately. Hand to mouth means whatever there in your hand, that is you are going to get today. Don't know after 3 hours you'll get a food or not. We don't know. In such situations, it happens. Getting hands on food was difficult at that time. It is true that planning is not sure bet. It is not an palliative for all organizations. It is palliative It's a medicine. It's a solution for all the organizational. A fact-changing environment reduces the accuracy of planning efforts and forces their revision even before their implementation. But one should remember that it is only difficult but not impossible to forecast future changes. Once you are able to plan for contingencies means suddenly something happens without any prior warning. Something happens suddenly. Necessary steps can be taken up to minimize the impact of unfavorable market conditions. It is no use reacting to the crisis as and when they arise. That is a reactive decision. You should be proactive. Before happening, you should be prepared for that. Should have a data and experienced person. It should be a little bit prepared, not fully prepared for this contingent. When events are left to chance, there is no room for the organization to survive in the. Any good plan has a built-in contingencies and several alternatives. The real payoff in planning arises from the search and identification of contingencies only. The search causes planners to consider the impact of non recurring events and evaluate their potential influence on the organization. As and when such events takes place, organization is happily placed to face change challenges instead of steering a blind course. Planners have something to fall back upon and weather out the storm. One of the great payoffs of planning is that it helps the manager command a future rather than being commanded by it. Next, we move on to the next heading, that is types of planning. Types of plans is different, types of planning is different. Planning is a planning where it is used is a continuous tense. It is ing is used continuous. Planning is continuous process. So planning types of planning are long range planning, short range planning versus we are going to compare these two. Long range planning covers relatively long period of time, maybe it may be 5 years, and affects many departments, divisions of the organization. It includes the formulation of overall broad objectives and the selection of appropriate means by which objectives are to be achieved. Long range planning is quite common in stable industries such as steel, public utilities, and automobile. In India, public sector companies generally adopt the national planning period of 5 years. Long range planning is a result of series of interrelated steps. The first step is estimation of international, national, and local situations. The possible future changes that might take place in the areas external to an organization are examined. Second step of long range planning is defining the goals to be pursued by the organization and philosophy to be adopted. Third step in long range planning answers simple question. Where are we now? For this, the objective assessment of the degree of success in accomplishing goals. Geography is considered. Where are you? Which country you are? What are the government policies of the country? Is the environmental situation in that country? On a day-to-day basis is met. The fourth step is an attempt made to find out the strong or weak spots in the company's programs till date in the light of the additional information on the sales, selling expenses, production targets, capital inflow, etc. The deficiencies are rectified promptly. Now, a full blown program of the long range planning is developed and approval is sought for its adoption. The last step is concerned with placing a long range planning into to reduce ambiguity. Ambiguity means confusion and achieve some measure of specificity. Should be specific. Where there is a specificity is there, ambiguity is not there. Long range planning is divided into action plans, that is intermediate and short term plans for the sake of convenience and implementation. Short range planning or operational planning. Long range planning is divided into sub short range plannings. So at the operating level also we need planning. Short range planning, a plan that is specific and detailed, generally covers a span of 1 year or less, not 5 years. This year how much we are producing, what is our production target, sales target. Short range planning covers the period of 1 or 12 months, depending on the nature of the business, the traditions prevailing in India. Short range plans are otherwise called the operational plans. They are usually made in specific and detailed manner. The emphasis is on flexible budget, on goals and targets, expressed in a clear and precise language. Primary concern is efficiency, doing things right, rather than effectiveness, doing right things. This and the short range plans gather information, yes, have a proper information, evaluate alternatives, and select the most suitable course of action. Operative plans provide content and form a long range plan to form a long range plan. In fact, short range planning is an extension of the long range corporate plans. Market plans, production plans, financial plans are typical examples of operational plans. Long range planning and short range planning are expression of a breadth of planning period. The terms short term, long term, sometimes present an erroneous. Erroneous means there is something wrong in that, because people generally associate short term with a narrow perspective, long term with a broad view. Not like that. Short term planning and cooperation to the long term planning is to achieve a long term. The time dimension of planning cannot be reduced. Simplify expressions such as short term and time span varies really depending on the factors like industry characteristics, market demand, availability of resources. And during COVID-19, even in one industry, people are ready to work, human resources available. There is a scarcity of the raw materials because they are getting the supplies from their suppliers. There, the employees are not working. There was nobody to uh, load the raw materials and send it to the producing company. Was the uh, availability of resources, environmental complexity. What may appear to be long range planning, in case of may turn out to be a short range planning. Other company. There is a comparison between long range planning and short range. Point of distinction is a time factor. Time factor, long range planning is for 5 years or more. Short range planning up to 1 year. Deals with the mission, long term goals and strategies. Short range deals with the current operations of an organization. Primary focus of long range planning is organizational linkage with external factors, linkage with various parts of the organization's internal, and impact. Over long range planning, impact is demands changes in structure, resource, and allocation. And short range operates within existing structure and within a company. Short goes too far into the future. Risk and uncertainty level is high in long range planning. Where the time horizon is limited and risk associated with uncertainty in short range planning. Top management prepared by top management. Long range planning. Short range planning is at the lower executive. Next is operational planning versus strategic planning. Right. Operational planning is done by the lower level, executing level. Strategic planning is done by the top management. Strategy refers to ideas, plans, support that firm employ to compete with their rivals. Strategy is mean to help firms achieve broadly speaking, competitive advantage, what allows firm to gain an edge over its rivals. Superior design skill, quality, work, after sales service, low cost manufacturing. Sometimes the bigger companies overtake the it's a small company and it is a competitive, it's own company for that company. Like the short term planning, strategic planning involves an extended time frame. It is like long range planning, deployment of the substantial percentage of organizational risk, wide spectrum of the major eventual impact. Basically, strategic planning is planning that is conceptual and functionally long term, wide ranging, and critical to the organizational success. In terms of the cost and of the resources it affects and the outcome of its envisions. Strategic plan, a general plan outlining decision of resource allocation, priorities, action steps necessary to reach strategic goals. Important features of the operational strategic plans are summarized to the following table. Characteristics of strategic and operational plans. It is comparison here, feature, time horizon. Strategic long range is the 5 years. Operational is 1 year. Purpose. Strategic planning is adapt the external environment based on the strength. Implement external goals. Operational level. Activity control total institutional performance. Strategic planning. Internal tasks and operations in operational planning. In range. Relatively enduring. It is a wide in strategic planning. Operational planning short term it is. Organizational level involved. Top management is involved in strategic planning. Middle and lower level management is involved in operational. Basis for planning. Primary judgment. Extra data and standards used in operational level. Predictability. It is uncertain because it's in long range. We cannot predict what may happen in after 5 years. Highly certain in operational level because it is a short range plan. Anticipated accuracy in 25%, even to 3% accuracy. Management functions involved. Planning and forecasting dominant as control is the primarily there in the operational level. Management control of outcome. Slight contingency plans are required at the strategic level. Operational planning almost complete. Single option plans are used because it is short term. Next type of plannings are tactical or coordinative intermediate planning. Intermediate contingency planning, the determination of alternative courses of action to be taken if intended plan is unexpectedly disrupted by environmental forces or rendered inappropriate. Tactical plans are less detailed than the short range. They are concerned with implementation of strategic plans by coordinating the work of different departments. They try to integrate various organizational units and ensure commitment to the strategic plan based on results obtained by implementing short range. Term review is undertaken. It is intermediate planning. Moving average is usually obtained, and success or failure of the operational plans is assessed, and need for readjustment is needed. For this, they'll do auditing. Coordinative planning thus helps in shifting the gears whenever pitfalls occur while implementing the short range or long plans. Coordinative planning means they'll go for another alternative plan something working well. Formal and informal planning. Formal plan a written record to what organization intended within the time frame. Informal means it is not written, it is formal. A formal plan is a well documented plan. It is a written record of what the organization intends to do within a time frame. The record is made after a careful evaluation of all relevant factors that have appearing in organizational functioning. Managers at the various levels are deliberately involved in the formulation and implementation process. Systematic and rational. Informal is not systematic. Planning does not offer a written record. It is carried out without any direction. Managerial thoughts which do not find expression on a paper are informal plans. It encourages managers to evade response. Unhealthy tendencies like carelessness in planning and hazard actions, randomness, loss of memory, negligence, and direction might keep creeping. It should be followed as an exception rather than a rule. Next type of planning is functional and corporate planning. Functional planning is a unit planning. Same company having a different units, different plans are there. That unit should plan functionally itself. It deals with the parts such as production, marketing, finance, manufacturing, isolated department should plan their function. That is their focus. As a result, functional planners develop a parts mentality. They think of their department successful. Another department feels they don't bother about it. So this gives the part mentality. Their manager's goal is not organization oriented. They often fail to see the total big picture. Right. The impact of internal as well as an external factors may not be fully taken care of in respect of the functional planning. Corporate planning outlines the broad objectives of the company goal and develops plans designed to meet those objectives. It has both the micro as well as macro focus. Various functional plans are integrated so as to meet the broad objectives of the organization. It is integrative in nature. It takes a long term view. It tries to strike the balance between organizational resources and environmental challenges. In the process, tendencies like hawkism, the practice of reacting to what happens rather than planning in advance. Hawkism. After something disastrous happens, then we plan for that. That is adhocism. Parts mentality, narrow functional outlook, friction between units are kept under constant. The focus is always on the overall organization function. Reactive planning. Reactive means in proactive planning, managers challenge the future, anticipating future contingencies, and get ready with alternative routes for unforeseen circumstances. Proactive. Reactive means after something bad happened, they start planning. It is reactive. Reactive planning. Reactive planning is a way of thinking about managing the future risks and challenges. It tries to take care of all the future contingencies and plans are often tied to time frame. Within this period, say 2 years period, many changes may occur and upset all the projection uh, planned ones and calculations. Proactive planning makes managers alert and all such changes. They predict this may happen. Give you a small hint, then maybe also you are prepared and little bit you are prepared for that. They are forced to be dynamic, active, creative instead of reacting to the events passively. Managers are ready with the alternative plans and actions, redefining and reshaping the future. It helps the managers to challenge the future rather than accept the same meekly. Meekly means silently see what is happening and sit quiet. It is chiefly concerned with the initiating actions today as to survive and grow tomorrow. Reactive planning comes that the organization merely reacts to the events as when they arise. In reactive planning, organization merely reacts to the external events. Organization is left to the vagaries of environmental forces. Vagaries unexpected events. Unexpectedly something happens. These environmental quiet and observe what is happening. They can't do anything. Automobile companies that found that fuel efficiency is going to be the most important demand of the customers. ITs have registered consistent growth. All these, whereas those that did not visualize this in advance are no more in existence in the market now. Fiat ambassador cars are no more now because the fuel efficiency in India, first the people mentality, they what they looking for is they buy costly cars, but they one point they look at is the mileage of cars. How much mileage it is the first. They're ready to buy the costly cars, but they should give the mileage. Not giving the mileage, it's not good for according to their thinking. In the fast changing world, reactive planning may prove to be a costly. After something happened, if you are then planning it will be delay in the production, you cannot meet the demand. Then before we realize what has happened, we might be shown the door. If you for realizing that you will be out of the market and you have to lock down your organization. Go out. Managers, as rightly pointed out by the Drucker, should not wait for the future. They have to make the future by initiating original actions. Okay, here is the revision. What we have discussed is first one is long range, short range planning, comparison of these two. Then operational and strategic planning. Operational means short range, strategic means long range. We have to explain in your own words. And tactical or coordinate planning. Next, formal informal planning comparison, functional and corporate planning, then proactive and reactive planning. All this we have discussed. You have to remember all these headings and explain in your own words. Understand this and write in your own words. Don't mug up. Next steps in the planning or the planning process. For both these headings, you have to write the same answer. Planning is a vital managerial function. It is a intellectual demanding. It requires a lot of time and effort on the part of the planners. If a person is experienced and already a lot of information and data is there regarding that particular uh, field, then much time is not required. realized here. They must adopt the systematic approach so as to avoid pitfalls errors and the costly mistakes which may upset the whole business later on. Such a systematic approach may consisting of the following steps. Steps in the planning. First steps is establishing have a goal for planning. The first step in planning process is to identify the goal of an organization. For new startup business, they should have a goal, what they are going to in this business. Now producing this and this, producing that. They do not jumble up. They should be specific. What is the goal of the organization? They are providing service or they are producing consuming good or the business good. What they are going to produce, they should decide before starting specific. The internal as well as external conditions affecting the organization must thoroughly examine before objectives. Objectives so derived must clearly indicate what is to be achieved, where action should take place, who is to perform it, how it is to be undertaken, when it is to be accomplished. In other words, managers must provide clear guidelines for the organizational efforts so that activities can kept on a right track. Developing premises. After setting up objectives, it is necessary to outline planning premises. Premises are assumptions about the environment in which plans are made and implemented. Assumptions about likely impact of the important environmental factors such as market demand for goods, cost and raw materials, technology to be used, population growth, government policy, etc. On the future plans are made. The demand for the fuel efficiency vehicles in the late 1980s has compelled virtually all automobile manufacturers in India to go in a search of collaborative agreements with the foreign manufacturers from Japan, Germany, USA. They collaborated with the other companies. Plans should be formulated by the management, keeping the constraints imposed by the internal as well as external. Right. Third point is step in the planning is evaluating alternatives and selection. Yes, after establishing the objectives, planning premises and alternative courses of action have to be considered. Liberalization of the imports and the use of the high technology in recent times has encouraged manufacturers to produce color television sets, electronic equipment, video computers, fuel efficient vehicles, etc. Has changed in the government policy, technology, competition, etc. Propose several alternatives before manufacturers from time to time regarding the product they should manufacture. Such alternatives have to be carefully evaluated against factors like costs, associated risks involved, benefits likely to arise, availability of the spare capacity, the pros and cons as well as the consequences of alternative action must be examined thoroughly before the choice is made. Formulating derivative plans. After selecting the best course of action, the management has to formulate the secondary plans to support the best plan. You should be ready with another alternative plan. Plans derived from the various departments, units, activities, etc. in a detailed manner are known as the derivative plans. For example, the basic production plan requires the number of things such as availability of the plant, machinery, training of the employees, provision of adequate finance, etc. To ensure the success of the basic plan, the derivative plan must indicate the time schedule and sequence of performing the various tasks. Securing cooperation and participation. Successful implementation of the plan depends to a large extent on wholehearted cooperation of the employees. Employee cooperation in executing the plan is very important. They should accept it. The view of this management should involve the operations people planning it. Then they'll accept. They'll think that is one activity. Then they'll work on it willingly. They give huge success. Suggestions, complaints, and criticisms from the operating management rectify the defects in the plans and set things right in the beginning itself. Involvement of the subordinates in planning has a unique advantage of getting a practical view of those closer to the sensor. According to the Coons, the plans have an atmosphere of participation, high degree of tolerance. Participation enables employees to give their best to them. They also motivate to carry out the plan to the best of their ability. Next step is sixth step, providing for the follow-up. Plans have to be reviewed continuously, the continuous process to ensure their relevance and effectiveness. The course of implementing plans, certain facts may come to the light that were not even thought of earlier. In the light of these changed conditions, plans have to be revised. Without such regular follow-up, plans may become out of date and useless. Moreover, such steps ensures the implementation of plans along right lines. Management can see shortcomings in time and initiate suitable remedial steps. Continuous evaluation of the plans also helps to develop sound plans in future, avoiding mistakes that have surfaced while implementing the previous plans. So these are the steps. First step is establishing objectives. Next, second is developing premises. Third is evaluating alternatives and selection. Formulating derivative plans. Next step is securing cooperation and participation. And third step is providing to for the follow-up. Next, we move on to the next heading, planning tools and techniques. What are the tools and techniques used in the planning or forecasting? Forecasting, what happens in the future, you have to predict here. Forecasting is a process of predicting what will happen in the future. Almost every plan involves forecast of some sort. So, the economists regularly report forecasts of the economic conditions, interest rates, unemployment, and trade deficits. Among other issues, there are some based on the qualitative forecasting. Qualitative forecasting uses experts' opinions to predict the future. Also, it is all to use the mathematical models, statistical analysis of the historical data, and surveys to predict the future events. Contingency planning is also one of the tools uh, for the successful planning. It identifies the alternative courses of action that can be implemented to meet the needs of changing circumstances. Although it is not possible for everyone to predict when it will go wrong, it can be expected that they will. It's unlikely that any plan will ever be completely perfect. Changes will occur in the environment. When crises and emergencies occur, managers and organizations have contingency plans that are ready to be implemented. Contingency plans certain trigger points that indicate when pre-selected alternative plans should be activated. Scenario planning. It is identifying several alternatives. Scenario means it is a written outline of the firm, like objective goals, strategies, policies. This planning is also required. It involves identifying several alternative future scenarios that may occur. Plans are then made to deal with scenario as a topic. For example, the Heart and Stroke Foundation of the Ontario set out to design a new model for the healthcare funding. They wanted to challenge the organization, think in different ways about the future. The scenario planning process benefited them by helping the broad and other invited experts to rehearse strategic development plans and tactics in 5 different realistic scenarios. Benchmark technique that uses external comparisons, better evaluate one's current performances, identify possible actions. The purpose of it is to find out what other people or organization doing well at the plan, how to incorporate these ideas into one's own operations. One of the benchmarking techniques are used to search for the best practices. Best practices are things that lead to their performance. It is considered that best run organizations also emphasize the benchmarking that encourages all members work units to learn through their sharing one another's best practices. Next is a point is participation and involvement. Includes in all planning steps people who will be affected by the plans or who will be asked to help implement them. This process brings many benefits to the organization. Participation can increase creativity and information available for planning. Those who are going to execute this plan, they should be involved in the planning. Should take advices and from those people as a suggestion and put in the planning. Also, it increases the understanding and acceptance of the plans along with the commitment. Although it takes a long time, it can improve results by improving all employees participate regularly updated about the company's program towards its goals. Use of the staff planners. Staff planners are the employed to help coordinate planning for organization as a whole or for one of its major components. They help bring focus and energy to accomplish important planning tasks. This can result in the tendency for a communication gap to develop between staff plan and line management. Everyone must work closely together. The resulting plans may be inadequate and people may lack commitment to plans no matter who they are. Planning tools and techniques are six here. One is forecasting, contingency planning, scenario planning, benchmarking, participation and involvement, use of the staff planner. You have to remember essentials of the good plan. First one is simple. Planning procedure planned out to be simple. Organization should create a simplest process that is in accordance with the planned program works. Even manager is able to use it with the undue pressure of the day work and proper training. It is necessary to keep the planning process simple. However, too much simplicity should not ruin the method of procedure produce effect. It is practical. Planning process is likely to be. Any planning process is considered as a practical when the executive experience positive result by executing. If it is expected benefit to top management at higher level, just we show unwilling compliance frequently following by useless bitterness even for the average manager. Marketing manager has to build up a practical process and give basic and basic site information with. It is selective and adaptive. Planning process must be so easy to understand and adaptable that all managers are able to work according. The plan should be according to the should not force him to exercise it more than what he needs, particularly in functional areas, so that other distinct areas of the planning of the area are synchronized. It is flexible. Planning process must be it and should be so flexible that it should be feasible to change of less cost. Any plan has to be changed. Plans and planning process should provide this least flexibility. It should not be affect the whole process of priced automation of the planning process. Is excellent step in this direction. Is precise. Marketing planning must be precise in terms of the objectives and goals to deal good of erroneousness overcomes. Erroneousness means wrong thing. In fact, there is a much in the future that cannot be predicted with accuracy, and more fire goes beyond the less accurate and far distant. Though there are three ways of expressing the expected result, namely general, specific, and a dynamically way of expression marks it possible to state it precisely so that can be recognized measurement of the possible deviations. He has reliable information. Reliable information. The good and effective planning involves continued effort of gathering and communicating reliable information. Information should be there for taking any decision or plan anything. The future guess is neither the forecast nor prediction, but a provisional supposition with accuracy. Planner must have a regular feedback of information so that he may alter and refine analysis and projected view whenever there is a major divergence. It is synchronizing. It is expected from the good planning process that it helps in coordination in all types of things, short and long, tactical and corporate, financial and non-financial. In broader terms, there should be ideal synchronization. Synchronization means unifying all the departments, and synthesization. Synthesization means creative innovation of the personal recruitment, training, and all other like. It does not support and coordinate all sub-functions or relate function area. There would be increase in the company expenses in terms of time, man hours, confusion, confrontation, offense, and frustration. It is motivating. Planning process to be effective and need the smart and exciting support of executive faculty. It supports people to contribute, provide they are motivated. They they well designed and executed planning process enhances employee morally as it provides basic motivating factors. It encourages the real sense participation. It reduces anxiety by converting sharing information into effective communication. It gives security to their place in the organization. It gives complete idea about the right way to get the objective. less paper. A viable planning is one that completes the work with least administrative work. That is called viable planning. That is best planning. The planning ought not to be recorded as a hard copy. Such planning implies least amount of paperwork, improves human relations, communication. The paperwork can be decreased to the base by following conversation and outlining. Gives the data simply required. Don't unfurl everything. Evade or duplicate data by giving normal data from it has a direction. Good plan has a direction. Get the best outcome. There ought to be a head of the planning who doesn't design but regulates and checks it regarding how it is functioning and how it should function. He ought to be a subject matter expert. He guarantee effective execution. Capability of such an expert can be coordinated, character of the knowledge, innovativeness and good instinct, getting a charge out of astounding relational abilities, having preparing in ideas, standards, strategies, and practice. Overall, he ought to have uncertain time, free from diverting pressing factors and obligations with the goal that he can give whole an idea opportunity. End of